So first off, welcome, and thank you guys for joining me for my segment of this presentation. I seem to have forgotten my original name to this presentation. It was much cooler the first time around, making your own luck, finding your calling, and landing the job. But at 1 o'clock in the morning, I thought it was finding your passion and landing the job. So it's the same presentation, just different titles for it. All right, so who is this person that's talking to you? The short answer, I'm an attorney. Right, so that's the boring answer. The long answer, I'm a graduate of Binghamton University. I was a political science major here. Actually, I loved the political science major. I ended up pretty much doing it twice. I was taking like 20 credits a semester of political science classes, so I was a nut job. I was also a discovery advisor. My sophomore year, I was a discovery advisor in Johnson Hall of Dickinson Community, the original Dickinson Community. I did see that now there's a brand new monstrosity of gorgeousness on this campus that is the new Dickinson Community. I was a resident assistant up in Mountain View Community for my last 2 years. I was a tutor on campus, a tour guide. I was a member of Outdoor Pursuits, and I have in parentheses a reluctant member of the club volleyball, and that's because they needed one female for their team, and I was the token female for their team. I am scared of all sports that involve a ball, so that limits me to swimming and disc golf, I guess. And like I said, I was a resident of Dickinson Community and Mountain View Community. Do we have anybody that lived in either of those communities or currently live? Awesome, nice. All right, so after I went to Binghamton University, I went on to SUNY Buffalo Law School, and now I'm an attorney at Levine, Golden & Thompson, which actually, we are neighbors because my firm is like 2 streets over from the university. I'm in Vestal. So I came back to the area after I went to law school. All right, so yes, I was in your shoes once. And just to prove it, my husband and I had a great time picking out pictures of me from when I was a student. So Sabrina the bear cat. Yes, so my friend Galia, who is above me in that picture, and we used to have sleepovers when we were RAs, and we would bake up a storm and spend the night watching Sex and the City and eating brownies and cookies to our heart's delight. That was before I would eat a brownie and gain 5 pounds. So those were the days. And now Sabrina the attorney, looking all professional there. All right, so before I go into the next segment, you guys all got to read my little biography here and hear me for the last 5 minutes talking about myself, but I want to know who I'm talking to here. I didn't get a pamphlet of all of your faces and your backgrounds. So just a show of hands, how many of you are undergraduate students? Okay, and graduate students, there's a couple of you. Okay, a few. And of those of you that are undergraduate students, how many of you guys already have declared your major? Okay, quite a few. And that there's still a few that haven't declared the major. So I'm wondering how many are freshmen? Sorry, there's gonna be a lot of raising hands for a little bit here. Okay, sophomores? Juniors? Okay, seniors? All right, we have a good spread here. Okay, so just so those of you that are not sure what you want to major in, have no fear. When I started here, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. Of those of you that have declared your major, I'm sure that some of you are still toying with that, so you know what you enjoy taking classes in, but how does that translate into a career? And it's okay. When I was a tour guide, I actually used to love to ask this question to my tour group and ask, okay, so how many of you guys want to be a doctor or a lawyer? And inevitably, almost every hand would go up for one of those 2 careers. But by the end of your senior year, you realize, okay, well, what I wanted when I was just out of high school is not necessarily what I want today. Your experiences can really shape you, and you have to allow those experiences to shape you. Don't just hold on to this idea that you've had since you were 12 years old that you wanted to be this, whatever, XYZ. Allow yourself to explore, because that's what undergrad is really all about. Oh, and I should go back to this slide. You're going to see that there's a lot of dating references here. And honestly, finding the perfect career is a lot like finding the love of your life. So I was having some fun with the titles here. A lot of them are cheesy, so just bear with me, all right? But really, undergraduate time and graduate is the time to date around and find what you like. So seek experiences that allow you to grow. I know that I'm guilty of this. When I was an undergrad, I found that there were some classes that I knew I was going to excel in. I love public speaking. So classes where the final project involved a public speaking presentation, I was like, heck yes, I'm on that, easy A. Don't do that. Expand your horizons. How many of you guys go on to Rate My Professor before you register for classes and try to find out the professors that they say, oh, easy, you can go through this class and still get an A, or just to scope out the professors before you decide that you're going to take that class? Show of hands. Yeah, I was like that too, okay, I will admit. But don't let the comments on there that say, oh, I had to work my butt off in this class and I still got a B or whatever, don't let that deter you from taking the class. My favorite professor of undergrad, was actually a professor that I was hesitant to take his class my sophomore year because I saw all the reviews on Rate My Professor were like, this was the hardest class that I've taken. Save yourself, spare yourself anxiety, don't take this class. But I was so interested in this subject. So I took the class, despite all of those comments saying not to, and I ended up taking about 5 more classes with this professor. And interesting, I was that student that would literally, I kid you not, cry over A minuses, like cry about it. I never got an A in one of his classes. I worked my butt off and did not get an A. But I loved learning in his class. He was an excellent professor and really expanded my horizons. And actually, because of taking that difficult class and talking with him outside of class as well, I ended up taking a trip to Washington, D.C., on the university's dime, by the way, where I got to meet with ambassadors. I got to meet with think tanks in D.C. It was an amazing experience. And if I listened to those comments online, I never would have had that opportunity. I never would have exposed myself to these areas of growth that I didn't even know were possible. So I just wanted to put that out there. Don't be closed-minded about classes just because somebody says it's hard. Don't let that close you off from it. Okay, so be open to different classes and majors. I started off by saying that I was a nut job for the political science major, but I wasn't always like that. In undergrad and in graduate school, you guys have the opportunity to take pretty much any class that you want. Of course, you have to take, the required curriculum, but there are so many classes out there for you guys to delve into. For example, I took a theater class. I took a piano class, which was awesome. I played the violin for some 17 years. And when I came to school, I was like, okay, this is my chance to try something new. So I put the violin aside, and I tried the piano. Now, am I the next Beethoven? No, I'm not. But I still enjoyed it, and I can play a mean scale even today. So definitely, get yourself out there and try different classes that might challenge you. And again, this goes back to don't let Rate My Professor dictate your course schedule. So for example, if you're interested in sciences, that's great. Still take science classes. But try an English class. Put yourself out there and challenge yourself. Because who knows, you might find a little niche in there. So maybe you'll be a great scientist who can incorporate something with the English classes that you took here, and then you're unstoppable. You never know. So definitely be open to different classes, different majors. And I have a story about the major thing. So like I said, I loved political science, but I was a commitment phobe in school. I waited until pretty much like the last week that you can declare a major in order to declare my major. And right before I did, I was pretty sure that I was going to do political science, but I was taking a geology class. I'm not a really big geology person, but for like a split second there, I was like, you know what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a geologist. That's what I'm going to be. So I set up an appointment to talk to my professor, and I was like, I'm going to be a geologist, so what do I have to do? And about 5 minutes into the conversation, I felt my eyes glaze over, and I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. So I was polite and, let him finish his spiel. By the end, I was pretty sure that we were both on the same page that being a geologist wasn't for me. And actually, on the way, walking back up to Mountain View, I turned around, walked back down to campus, and declared my major in political science. The point of that story is you might know what your heart wants, but again, just be open. Just think about the different opportunities that are open to you because you have a world of them right here at your fingertips. So beyond the classes, keep in mind there are clubs, activities, speaking engagements, presentations, like the one you're at right now, actually. There's plenty for you guys to do here that outside of the classroom can open your eyes to different experiences. Maybe you get an insight into a career that you never considered before. It doesn't have to be a classroom experience for you to find your passion. So as you find things coming up in the Beeline, and I had lunch with the table up here, and they were telling me that twice a day you guys get a Beeline email. And I know it can be very easy to disregard this email and be like, oh my God, another one. I have too much on my plate already. But take a look at it. There might be something that sparks some curiosity in you. And go to those programs, talk to the presenters afterwards. They're connections. Everybody that you meet is a potential connection for you in the future. All right, and then as I mentioned before, let yourself evolve. So what you wanted to be when you were 8 years old may not be what you want to be today. And what you want to be today may not be what you want to be as you're preparing to graduate. And that's okay. When I was 8 years old, I was convinced I was going to be an astronaut. Well, somewhere around, let's see, junior or senior year in high school, that's even being generous, it's more like maybe 8th grade, I realized that math and science was pretty darn difficult for me, and by the way, my eyesight is awful. Don't let my contacts fool you. I am blind without them. So being an astronaut, being a pilot was a little bit of a reach for me. I still love space stuff, but I decided that something with public speaking and something with writing skills, researching, that's more up my alley. But if I was the 8-year-olds today, then I would probably be an astronaut. So just keep in mind that your experiences that you have can change you, and that is okay. That is completely okay. All right. All right, so what's important to you? So it's critical for you to think about your values when you're thinking about what kind of a job you may want. All right, so what's important in your life and what's important for a job? Now, I actually went onto your career development website and I saw that there was this excellent outline that had like a 2-page list of all of these different elements that you rank what's important to you based on 1 to 5. And some of them were like working with a team, being a leader, flexibility, time for family, making lots of money. And you rank all of these, and it was a great exercise to figure out, okay, so you know what you're passionate about, but what kind of a job environment do you want? And that's so critically important. And not only is it important for you to consider these different values, but also consider how important they are for you. So you find a job that's high paying, but it's going to make you work 70 hours a week, which means you're not going to have time for your significant other or your kids perhaps as much as you would want. Well, how important is that big paycheck for you? What are you willing to sacrifice one value for another? What's also important, and this is something that I wish that somebody told me many, many times, was also keep in mind, are these values your values? Are they what you want? Or are they what society wants? Are they what your mom and dad want you to have? Are they what your older brother and sister want? None of that matters. None of it matters. What matters is what you want, because it's your life. It's not their life. It's not society that's dictating anything. It's you. So how many of you guys watch Sex and the City before I embarrass myself or date myself? All right, good. So about half of you. So I was thinking about this, and I related it to Charlotte and her dating life. So Charlotte and Trey, that's what society wanted, right? Charlotte and Trey were just like, they looked like they matched each other, and she thought that that's what she wanted. But it didn't work out, because it's not really what she wanted. It's what everybody else thought that she should want. And then Charlotte and Harry, right? You put them next to each other, you're like, no way, Charlotte, geez. But no. They were a match made in heaven. She looked outside of what everybody else was telling her, and she found her true love that way. So relate that to your values. Just because the rest of the world is telling you, yeah, you want a job that pays you at least $100,000 a year and has, you have a lot of control over other people, little minions, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you want. Some people like to be strong followers. Some people think that the paycheck is not so important as the family time. So just keep in mind that what your values are. When you see the list, it's extensive. It's like 2 pages long, but I encourage you to go online and look at that list. And when you're filling it out, just step back every once in a while and reflect on, is this what would make me happy? Will this lead me to my job / my Harry? Or is this leading me to my job / my Trey and divorce? So just keep that in mind, okay? What's important is what you want. Okay, so also something to keep in mind, and it's pretty, you probably just know this automatically, but what's most important is making you happy, irrelevant of what anybody else thinks. And for me, it's making a difference in society and helping others. So as an attorney, I help a lot of people at an individual level. I meet with clients, I help them decide what they want to leave behind, because I'm an elder law attorney. So I work with people to create trusts and wills and make sure that their loved ones are taken care of after they pass away. And it's an important job, and I love it, working individually with people. But you know what? A question that I ask myself a lot is, am I doing enough? And you know, this week, looking back, I say, yes, I did enough because I didn't get home until 10 p.m. like any day this week. But my answer is always no for some reason. I always feel like I should be doing more. So even though I'm helping people at an individual level in my job, I have the need to help society as a whole. So just because your job fulfills you in one way doesn't mean that it's going to fulfill you in every single way. You have to be realistic. So even though I'm helping people at an individual level in my job, which I love, and I would not give that up, I found other outlets to help the greater society. So for example, I'm on a board for the Mental Health Association of the Southern Tier, which is very dear to my heart. People's mental wellness is incredibly important. You're not going to get anywhere in life if you are not healthy. So that's one way that I fulfill these different goals in my life. All right. So translating your passion into a career. All right, so I also circled back to your career development website because let me tell you, there's a plethora of knowledge out there. If you have not visited that website, go to it. It's great. So I saw one program on there called My Next Move. Have any of you guys used this? No one. Has anybody heard of it? All right, you guys learned something today. So My Next Move is this program online. It asks you a series of questions, and then based on your answers, they break it down into categories of job personality traits, I guess you can say. And then you tell the program basically how much time you're willing to dedicate to get to whatever career it is that you want. So, you know, you want to go straight from undergrad to a job. That's one option. You're willing to put in another 5-7 years. That's another option. So based on your answers, it basically spits out a list of possible careers for you that they think would be the best match and then good matches. So basically, relating this back to my whole relationship theme, it's kind of like eHarmony or Match.com or something like that, right? So I decided for this presentation I was going to try out My Next Move and see what it would tell me, what my target careers are. So, whoops. So when I answered all the questions, it told me what my score was for these different personality traits first. So one of them was realist. And realist is someone that has practical, hands-on problem solving. They like that kind of thing. They generally work outside with plants, animals. I scored a 2 on this, so apparently I am destined to be indoors for whatever career it is. Next was investigative. And this is somebody that likes thinking of ideas, more thinking-oriented versus physically-oriented, like the realist is. Searching out facts, figuring out problems, that's investigative. So I scored a 17 on that, so pretty big jump from the 2. Artistic, and this was a little bit of a shock. So artistic is pretty self-explanatory, people that are interested in music, arts, creativity in your work environment. I scored a 29 on this. Social, I was not so surprised about, but you know, this is working with others, helping others, looking at the greater good. I scored a 35, which was my highest. Enterprising was another personality trait, and that's business, taking risks with profits. I scored a 14 on that, which I was a little surprised because I'm ultra conservative with anything. So 14 was a little bit of a surprise. And then the last one was conventional. And this is following a prescribed set of procedures. So basically, if you are more of a conventional worker, you like to have a strong leader and you're a good follower. I scored a 6 on this, so apparently I'm not good at following instruction. All right, so what did all this boil down to? My top careers that it spit back at me was clergy, so that was interesting, post-secondary teacher, law professor, and art therapist. All right, well, I'm not exactly an artist, so art therapy might be a bit of a stretch for me, but that's okay. Clergy, I don't even know where to start with that. But I see the merit in these. I see why they picked out these careers. And you know what? I wouldn't write any one of them off necessarily. And in my job as an attorney was on the list, by the way. It was actually listed under good for you instead of like great for you. But I love my job because I have the opportunity to do things like this too. I kind of have a feel of being a professor because when I meet with clients, I have to explain to them a very complicated law in terms that they would understand. So I'm teaching every single day that I'm at work. I'm teaching. But instead of in a setting more like this, it's more one-on-one or me and a family. So I hands down think that everybody should take a moment, because no one has checked out this site yet, only me in this room. Go online, go to Career Development Center, and try My Next Move and see what it says for you. It might be eye-opening. All right. And then alumni connections. I can't stress this one enough. Like I mentioned before, the people that you meet today, every single one of them could be a potential connection in the future. So your career, I don't even think it's the Career Development Center. Is it the Fleischman Center? Yeah, the Fleischman Center it's basically an alumni directory. And I know there's a different name for it, but I'm sure if you go there and say alumni directory, they'll know what you're talking about. It's a listing of all the alumni of Binghamton University, their careers that they're involved in, their location that they are. And these are alumni that are just waiting for you guys to reach out to them and ask them questions. So if you think you might be interested in a particular career, why not check out the alumni from Binghamton University, some of them that are in your particular profession, the one that you're interested in, and ask them about their experiences. Ask them about how they got to where they wanted to go, and ask them when they were in undergrad to share their experiences there too, because maybe they took a different path that you weren't thinking about for your career. For example, being an attorney, you don't have to be a political science major. You don't have to be a philosophy, politics, and law major. You can be a science major. You can be an art major. You can be anything and become an attorney. There's not one prescribed path. So talk to the alumni and see how they got to where it was that they ended up. Not to mention, they would be an excellent outlet for you guys to find potential internships, which is my next slide, I believe. Yes, internships. All right, so what's important about internships is it's basically the test drive, or I like to think of it as the relationship before the commitment. So the things that you want to get insight on, you can get through an internship. So you really want to see the inside scoop. What's the real deal of this job that you're interested in? You want to look at things like the work environment, the pace of the work too. You get a chance to talk to more people that are in this career position, in this job. And you get to look at how people interact with each other in that job environment. And what's important that I noticed in my internships is consider what time they arrive, what time they leave, and how they arrive and how they leave. Are they coming to work excited to be there? Or even if not excited, at least not miserable to be there? And are they leaving like running out the door, or are they leaving like, all right, it was a good day? Look at these little nuances, because that could be you if you continue on this path. And an internship is great insight into whether or not this is a path that you want to continue to pursue. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I should also mention, of course, it builds up your resume. So the more internships you do, the better your resume is going to look, because it shows that you've actually cared enough to try the job. So when you actually go to get the job, you can point to it and say, hey, I already know what this is going to be like, or something around what this is going to be like, and I still want to be here, okay? At Binghamton University, you guys have an awesome opportunity to take internships for credit. So that's something you should definitely take advantage of. Also, over your summers, of course, you can do internships too. But why not, instead of taking a full load of just classes, throw in an internship every semester if you can? I know that is it, again, through the Career Development Center, wherever it is that you can sign up, take a look at those listings and see if there's something that strikes your fancy and apply to it. At the very least, you get a chance to update your resume or create your resume if you haven't already, work on a cover letter, and you get some experience with interviews, which are all very important. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the presentation. Now, one thing that's important is keep your expectations realistic. So when you go into an internship, it might not all seem, like smiles and sunshine every day at the internship, but that's okay. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily pursue that job. It just means that maybe some days are better than others. Some days you might have to work a little harder than others. But definitely keep in mind that there's a way to tie all of your interests in together, like I mentioned before. So even if a particular job may not satisfy every single value, every single thing that you found important, that's okay. If you can see yourself being happy in that job, there are other ways that you can supplement the rest of your interests, okay? So I also wanted to mention just my own experience with internships. So my junior year, I applied to an internship at a law firm in the area. It was actually for pro bono divorce. So I learned through that internship that I never wanted to do divorce law. But what I also learned is that I could definitely picture myself working with clients, working with these other attorneys, working with the paralegals. It just seemed like a great environment. So fast forward to today, and I'm now an attorney at that firm that I was an intern at my junior year at Binghamton University, okay? I got this job, yes, because I'm a hard worker and I'm very diligent and I will do what it takes to do the job right, but I also got it because I just submitted a resume my junior year in undergrad. So the things that you guys do today can greatly impact where you go tomorrow. And internships are one of the great catalysts to get you to where you want to go. All right, interviewing. Oh yes, this is not a blind date. See, I thought I was being funny at like 1 a.m. when I was writing this, but. All right, so the interview. Research, identify, prepare, and then prepare some more. So make sure that when you're getting ready for the interview, that you come with every single thing that you need. And they're not necessarily going to tell you what you need. So bring extra copies of your resume, bring extra copies of your cover letter. Pretty much you want to look up online where it is that you're headed. So the morning of or the afternoon of your interview, you're not struggling to figuring out what floor you're on, what street the building is. You want to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row because the last thing you need is to be stressed out about one little item. All right. So actually I have a funny story about coming to the interview prepared with everything you need. When I was in law school, I had a great friend, and he was very interested in working at a DA's office. So he applied to the DA's office, he got an interview, and these positions are very competitive. So he was telling me about, like what kind of suit should I wear, what color tie, shirt, what's gonna get him the job, a blue tie or a red tie, right? So he was thinking about the job, but he was so excited and perhaps somewhat nervous that when he showed up for the interview, he was on the wrong floor for about 30 minutes. He thought it was on a different floor than it was, so he showed up to his interview 30 minutes late. And when he finally sat down for the interview, they asked him, why were you late to your interview? And he had to explain it. And then they said, okay, well, let's see your application packet. Application packet. Right. I'm just going to let myself out now. He forgot his application packet. He was so excited to get to the interview, he forgot what floor he was supposed to be on, and he forgot his application packet. Now, this ended up being, he didn't get the job right then, surprise, surprise. But he did end up reapplying for the job with some references from people that worked in that position. Again, networking is very important. And he is now working at that DA's office. But you don't want to take that risk, guys. Make sure you know where you're going. Make sure you bring everything that you're supposed to bring to that interview. Have all your I's dotted, your T's crossed. Just make sure you're ready. All right, so the next thing I just want to share with you guys some popular interview questions. Now, I've been to many interviews. When I was an RA, there's an interview process. When I was a tour guide, there's an interview process. I was a clerk for New York Supreme Court. There was an interview for that, my job now. So I've been on both sides of the table, though. I've been the person that was being interviewed, and now I'm interviewing potential candidates for my own firm. And I can tell you that some questions come up again and again and again. So if you can formulate answers for these questions before you go into the interview, all the better. And practice with your roommates, practice with your friends too. So some of these questions are the tell me about yourself question. You will definitely get this question, and it will probably be the first question as soon as your butt hits the chair. Tell me about yourself. And it seems like small talk, but it's not. They're evaluating everything that you're saying. They're evaluating how you're presenting yourself too. So make sure that when you come to the interview, my friend that was asking about the tie, that's not a bad idea. Consider what you're wearing too. But the tell me about yourself question, they want to know your background. They also want to know, why are you here today? And sometimes that can be a separate question, why do you want this job? But make sure that you have your answer prepared before you come in, because that's an easy one. A little, 2-minute bio of yourself that you think highlights some great traits that you have and why you're there. Perfect. Another question is, what can you contribute to this work environment? And you'll probably get that question too, especially if it's not just for an internship, but for the actual job. You will probably get that question. So before you go in, look at your resume and see what skills you have going on there. What skills are unique? When I applied for my internship at Levine, Golden & Thompson as a junior, the things that I had on my resume were being an RA, a tour guide. And one of the associate attorneys that I interviewed with, he said, your resume was one of the most interesting that I've looked at. And it was because I involved myself in so many different things that may not be exactly law related, but it gave me something to talk about, and it made me stand out. So that goes back to everything else I've been saying too. Expose yourself to different things, because you don't know what an employer is going to be looking for. All right, so another question is, which I kind of mentioned, why do you want to work here? Now this is the question that when I'm interviewing somebody, I always ask this, and about 50% of the time I cringe at the answers. So this is a question that you really want to think about and come up with a real answer for it, guys. I don't like hearing things like, because I wanted to be an attorney since I was 5. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to be an attorney. That's not an answer. That doesn't tell me anything. Why did you want to be an attorney? What about this job inspires you? What about this job makes you want to get up every day and go meet with clients and help them on their legal matters? So again, I know not all of you want to be attorneys, but think about it in respect of your career that you're seeking. Why do you want this job? And have your answer be real and heartfelt. That's what the interviewer is looking for, something that stands out and not just a cookie cutter answer, okay? Another question that comes up a lot is 2 strengths and a weakness. I know I'm sure that you're going to get a lot of different opinions on how to answer this, and there's no right answer. You should answer it however you think is right, but I will give you a tip. Very often I hear one of the 2 strengths is I'm a really hard worker, which is great, and that's a very good strength to have. And then the weakness I hear, sometimes I just work so hard. I just work too hard. Like I'm such a hard worker, which that might be true too. But come up with a weakness that is actually a weakness and you can spin it positively. Don't just have it be, again, you don't want those cookie cutter answers. And so often I hear that as the weakness. I'm just too hard of a worker. That's my weakness. So just, think about yourself personally and come up with a real answer to it. Okay, let's see. Be yourself. Oh, this is so important. Now that I've seen the other side of the table, when I meet with somebody that's interviewing for a position at the firm, I'm always excited to see, can I work with this person? Can I see my personality meshing well with this person? And if I leave that interview not knowing who you are, I don't know if I want to work with you or not. So let your personality shine through. And I have a great story about this from my husband, who we're videoing this, so I'm sorry, honey. But he had an interview at, he's an attorney in the area as well. And at his interview, he was asked, if you could be anything, what would you be? And he sat there for a moment and said, anything? Like a polar bear? All right. So luckily, the interviewer responded to that laughing and said, well, I meant more like a job, but that's good too, polar bear, that's good. So just be yourself. Read the interviewer, see if you can make some jokes. Really, the interviewer just wants to see your personality shine through and see if you'd be a good fit for that work environment. Now, I'm not saying necessarily you should be, joking around with the interviewer if you are not somebody that typically jokes around. Like, don't push yourself to be something that you're not. Be yourself. Let that beautiful personality of yours shine through in the interview so they want you to be there. They want to work with you because you're just that awesome of a person that they want to see you every day at work. Okay? All right. So another thing I wanted to mention was practice makes perfect. You don't have to go into an interview cold turkey. Actually, Binghamton University has an awesome mock interview program, which I did before I became an RA, because that was I considered it one of my first more serious interviews, and I wanted to make sure I was completely prepared for it. And it was an awesome program. You actually dress up like you're going to the interview. You have a mock interviewer that you tell before the fact, what you're interviewing for. You give them your resume, your cover letter, as if you're actually going into the interview. And right from the get-go, it's like it's your real interview. So you get a feel for, and they evaluate you too, which can be a little bit scary, but keep in mind, that's the point of doing a mock interview. It is for you to have the opportunity to be critiqued before you go in for the real thing. So, for example, sometimes you see me holding my hands. It's because I'm a talker with my hands. I tend to use them all over the place, and I was told that's a little distracting, so keep it. It's fine to use a hand sometime, but every once in a while, just put your hands down and let your mouth do the talking. So that was a tip that I got actually from that mock interview, and it sticks with me. So just keep in mind, when you go to the mock interview, just be open to what they have to say. Not everything you have to take, if you feel strongly that, but I want to talk with my hands, this is how I like to express myself, then go for it. But keep in mind that, the mock interviewer is telling you these things for a reason. They want to see you get the job, they want to see you succeed, and they're giving this to you as little tips. So I know that's something that Binghamton University still offers, and I definitely think that everybody should take advantage of it when you have the opportunity to have an interview. First, go and do the mock interview. Has any of you done the mock interview before? Okay, a couple of you. So if you do have the opportunity or you have an interview coming up, just keep that in mind. Also, the Fleischman Center, I know that they have a lot of programs that help you develop your resume and your cover letter. So before you even get to the interview, how do you get to the interview? With a beautiful resume and cover letter. That's how. And I know that if you've never had a resume before, it can be confusing. What do I put on here? How do I break down these skills? I don't even know what skills I got from this whatever I did. Go to the Fleischman Center and they'll help you. They'll help you draft a resume that is gorgeous and that will catch the eye of the employer. Also important is that cover letter. And what I always like to tell people is that your cover letter, yes, it should refer to the resume, but it should also indicate things that may not be readily apparent on your resume. So maybe there's a particular experience that you've had that you think would correlate well with this job or showcase a great skill that you have that would be beneficial for this job. That's your chance to explain it briefly in your cover letter to catch the attention of the person reviewing these cover letters and selecting the folks for the interviews. So cover letter and resume are incredibly important, and the Fleischman Center can help you guys work on that. Also, there are plenty of presentations, this being one of them, but all throughout the year, there are job fairs, there are presentations on how to prepare for your interviews, how to prepare for your next career. Take advantage of those. Again, being at Binghamton University, you guys have a world of opportunities at your fingertips, and you want to take advantage of them. Oh, one last tip. When you have your interview, and if you end up getting that internship or whatever, stay in contact with the people that you meet. These are connections for you guys. And actually, with my internship that I had at Levine, Golden & Thompson as a junior, I stayed in contact with a few of the attorneys that I worked with on a regular basis, and they knew I was going on to law school my senior year. I had told them I was going on to Buffalo, and they were the ones that told me, hey, we have a program actually for interns after your first year of law school, so you should apply for that and put me down as a reference. So that's how I got an internship with them after my first year of law school. They invited me back for the second year of law school, and now the rest is history. So stay in contact with the people that you meet. You're not being annoying. Okay, you might be annoying if you're sending them an email like every single week. Don't do that. But stay in contact with them maybe once a semester or so and give them an update of what you're up to. So do you guys have any questions for me? Yeah, sure.
I was just wondering, how did you know you wanted to go to law school?
Yes, well that took a lot of thinking on my part. I talked to a lot of alumni that went on to Buffalo Law School. I talked to a lot of alumni that went on to different law schools to see what their experiences were. I was toying with the idea of going to law school or going on to get my PhD. And again, it's interesting because when I took my career move, what was it called? That program, it said that being a law professor was one of my top hits. It was interesting that those were the two that I was considering. So I talked to a lot of people that went both routes and tried to figure out, okay, well, what would make me the most happy? And now, with a law degree, I can teach at a 10-year level. While if I got my PhD, I can't practice law. So that's what drove me towards the law degree side. And I'm happy with my decision. I definitely think that I've had a lot of opportunities open to me through that. But it does take, again, talking with people is key because you have not gone through that path yet, but other people have, and you can get their experiences and see if you can see yourself doing that same path. Okay. Hi.
So it looks like you had a lot of involvement here. So how did you decide, because it seems like it's more than you could put on a resume. So how did you decide which things you could actually get on there?
I usually tailored it to the particular job that I was applying for.
Okay.
So, for example, I was also a Red Cross volunteer. I volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club of Binghamton. And depending on the job, I would remove some things and expand upon other things.
Okay.
So, yes, you develop one resume, but that one resume is not static. That's not the same resume that you're going to apply to position A, B, and C with. Mm-hmm. But you have the one resume as your base, and then you change it up based on what they're looking for. And again, to determine what they're looking for, you talk to people. You talk to people that are in that career, or you go online and do a Google search if you don't want to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. And you find out what are the skills, what are the experiences, what are they looking for in an ideal candidate, and find those things on your resume that correlate well to that, or maybe are attenuated, but you can tie it in your cover letter.
Has anyone ever told you that being too involved or having too many organizations and clubs and internships on your resume is actually something not good? It's actually negative because it shows that you don't show commitment. It shows that you're just kind of scouting around. Maybe you're doing it for only resume building reasons, and I don't know.
Yes, I actually have. And as you probably got from the list of stuff that I was involved in here, I was definitely involved in a lot of organizations. What I look for, though, is not necessarily the number of organizations that you're involved in. And if I see 20 organizations, I'm not freaked out by that. In fact, that just tells me that you have a lot of interests. But I look for how far you got along in that organization. Did you step up and take leadership positions in them? And pretty much most of the organizations I was involved in, I took leadership positions. And now I'm a little crazy in that I like to be super busy, so I thrive in that kind of environment. But you know yourself best. If you can handle being involved in 4 different organizations and take on leadership in those organizations, more power to you. If you can handle being in 3 organizations and only take on leadership in 1, do it that way. But I would recommend in the organizations that you're most interested in to seek out those leadership positions because that looks amazing on a resume because it shows that you are dedicated, you are interested, and you're willing to take on challenges.
When talking about your strengths and weaknesses in an interview, how do you talk about your weakness without sounding too cliche, but also without putting yourself in too negative of a light?
Right. Well, what I always did was, first off, going back to what I said before, think honestly about what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. So for example, maybe you're not a big public speaker and you shy away from public speaking, or you had in the past. So you can say that in your interview, that, I sometimes struggle with public speaking. But it's something I'm working on. I've given a presentation in class. I've sought out to take public speaking skills workshops. Show ways that you're trying to address this weakness and how you actually are addressing it. And that means a lot more than just saying, something that you just think the interviewer wants to hear. Take a real weakness and then show how you're trying to address it. Any other questions?
You was involved in a lot of organizations, and I'm wondering how did you time manage?
I didn't sleep much. No, actually, looking back, I don't quite know how I managed all of that, but I think the best way I can answer that is I loved what I was doing. So it didn't seem like work. Like how I was saying that I was taking I basically did the political science major twice. I took way more classes than I needed to take. I had to get dean's approval to take more classes. And partly that's because I'm a nerd, but partly it's because I really enjoyed the subject. So doing all the assignments and the reading and the research projects, that was exciting to me. Like in the curriculum, your syllabus, where they have all those suggested readings that everybody just kind of like tears off or ignores. I was that weirdo that actually read those. So if you love what you're doing, then it doesn't seem like it's taking up so much time, and you just find a way to fit it in. Now, if you find that you're sacrificing other things that you care about, then it's time to pull back from something. All right, well, thank you all for being such an awesome audience and for all your questions. And if you have any more, I'm around.